Take that outside to drink it. Or go put it outside so it doesn't get spilled on the floor in here. No, you can put it outside. All right, conditional statements. Today you're going to be, stop talking please. You're going to be writing and working with conditional statements. There's a couple things that you have to know about conditional statements. And if then statement. Is of the form if P, then Q. The symbol for a conditional statement is P arrow Q. P represents the hypothesis. And Q, the conclusion. The hypothesis is what follows the if and the conclusion follows the then. So today you're going to be asked to identify the hypothesis and the conclusion of a conditional statement. And then you're going to be asked to write a converse, inverse, and a contrapositive of that statement. And here's the way this will work. So let's say that you are asked to identify the hypothesis and conclusion of the conditional. Then write a converse, inverse, and contrapositive. All right. So let's say you're given this statement. If a number is divisible by 4, then it is divisible by 2. Okay, so here's the way this works. This is an if-then statement. Here's your word if, here's your word then. This is called a conditional statement. All right, the symbol for this statement is P arrow Q. That means if P, then Q. If the hypothesis, then the conclusion. In this case, you're asked to identify the hypothesis. The hypothesis is what follows the word if. So this right here. Is the hypothesis. The conclusion follows the word then. So this, it is divisible by 2, or the number is divisible by 2. That's called the conclusion. All right, so here's our statement. This is our conditional. So the question said to identify the hypothesis and the conclusion of the conditional, then write a converse, inverse, and a contrapositive. All right, so we're going to write the converse of this statement. So the converse. Here's the symbol for the converse. It's Q arrow P. What it means is to switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. So you're going to write a statement now, and your statement's going to start with the word if. But the conclusion is going to follow the if. So we're going to say if a number is divisible by 2, then we're going to switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if a number is divisible by 2, then it is divisible by 4. We're not going to worry about the truth value right now. We're just going to concern ourselves more with the hypothesis and conclusion of the original statement, and then writing the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. But you're correct, that is not true. Next statement that we're going to write is called an inverse. And when you write an inverse, this symbol right here means to negate. It also means not. So we would read this, if not P, arrow, or then not Q. So we're going to go back to this original conditional statement. And we're going to negate the hypothesis, and then we're going to negate the conclusion. And the way you do that is by inserting the word not. So we're going to say if a number is not divisible by 4, then it is not divisible by 2. All right, so this negation symbol, this squiggly line in front of the hypothesis and the conclusion, means to insert the word not in front of your hypothesis or into your hypothesis and into your conclusion. The last statement that you're going to write is called a contrapositive. And that is when you take this converse statement and you negate it. So this would read, if not Q, then not P. So you go back to your converse and you would say that if a number is not divisible by 2, then it is not divisible by 4. All right, so today you're gonna be given some statements. You're gonna be asked to identify the hypothesis and the conclusion. And then you're going to be given some statements and you're going to be asked to write those 4 statements. Anybody have any questions on any of that? Hypothesis follows the word if, conclusion follows the word then. If the word if is not in the statement, let's say you're given a statement like all whole numbers are integers. Yes. Sometimes they will ask you to identify the hypothesis and the conclusion and determine the truth value. So you would answer true or false. Let's say you're given a statement like all whole numbers are integers. There's not a word if and there's not a word then in this statement. So you can either understand to yourself that in order to write this as a conditional, you would write it, or you would say, if a number is a whole number, then it is an integer. Okay, do you understand how you can take this statement that's not in if-then form, okay? You can write it in if-then form so that you can identify the hypothesis, which would be this, the number or a number being a whole number. The conclusion would be that it is an integer. All right? So understand that you could get a sentence in this form, and since it's, or when it's in this form, you can still determine the hypothesis and you can still determine the conclusion. Whether you rewrite it in if-then form or you just understand that it can be written in if-then form. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, then, your practice for today is going to be on page 111. Problems 1 through 4. And then page 113, problems 47 through 52.